church.
Good morning.
Pastor. I'd like to thank Lynda for that nice welcome and for inviting me to come out in light of Black History Month to perform this piece that I put together. Back in November 2008, something extraordinary happened. And I was so proud to be a part of that, which would have usually have been an ordinary event. And everybody who writes wrote about it. Everybody who sings sung about it. Now it's no different. So the piece is A Change Has Come. I was born by the river in a little tent. Sometime in 1820, a little black girl was born. She was born into slavery, but God had a plan for his anointed one. Her name was Harriet Tubman. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. After being subjected to brutal whippings and witnessing cruel beatings of other slaves, Harriet Tubman escaped. She then helped to map out a secret route to freedom, which later became known as the Underground Railroad. She then returned to the very location that held her in bondage and helped to lead hundreds of other slaves to the freedom that they so longed for. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. And on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed into law the Emancipation Proclamation, which abolished slavery forever. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. But shortly after that proclamation was signed into law, groups of hatred were formed. Lynch mobs, the Night Riders, the Ku Klux Klan, whose main objective was to torture, harass, kill, all to instill fear in the newly freed slaves to keep them from ever thinking that they could become equal American citizens. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. And on January 15, 1929, a little black boy was born. God had a plan for his anointed one. He later became known as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He had a dream that one day this nation would rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keeps telling me, don't hang around. But prejudice, segregation, and Jim Crow laws stood in the way of this dream becoming a reality. African Americans were denied service in restaurants and hotels. They were forced to sit in the back of buses. They were forced to sit in the high balconies of courtrooms and movie theaters. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. And through the strong leadership of Dr. King and the tireless efforts of others who shared his dream, on July 2nd, 1964, the Civil Rights Act was signed into law, which did away with segregation and Jim Crow laws forever. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. But even with the laws of the Civil Rights Act, African Americans denied the right carry on. But God had a plan. He has a plan for his anointed one. 43 years after the Voting Rights Act was signed into law, an African-American man was voted as the primary presidential candidate for the Democratic Convention. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. And on November 4, 2008, that African-American man, Barack Hussein Obama, was voted to the highest office of this land, the President of these United States. He was voted for by African Americans. He was voted for by white Americans. He was voted for by Asian and Hispanic Americans. He was voted for by the rich and the poor Americans. He was voted for by the young and the old Americans. We stood together, hand in hand. We stood together across this land. We stood together and said, yes, we can. And then we cast our vote for a young black man. It's time, America, that we become as one. It's time for us all to get the job done. It's time